What is up, everyone? It is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. On TikTok, you may have been seeing these videos where it seems like every single student at that high school is going to one of the top colleges. So today we are going to be talking about feeder high schools. So if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Rachel. I graduated from UC Berkeley in the class of 2020, where I double majored in cognitive science and legal studies. And now I'm currently working full-time at a law firm, and this past admissions cycle I was an external undergraduate admissions reader with UC Berkeley. So if you're a student applying to colleges soon, you should definitely check out Study Hall College Consulting. It's a team of myself and other UC Berkeley grads who specialize in reviewing college application essays as well as consulting one-on-one with students and parents. So definitely check out our website and social medias for more advice. So without further ado, let's get into this video. So let's start off with, what are feeder schools? So feeder schools are commonly charter schools and boarding schools that have been feeding students to top colleges like the Ivy League for decades. Under this feeder school umbrella, there can be some really outstanding public schools that are considered feeder schools, where parents might specifically move into that public school district to get their kids into that school, but these public schools are less common as feeder schools compared to the boarding schools and charter schools. So feeder schools are high schools where a majority of their students go on to higher education, often at the most prestigious universities like the Ivy League. And so I found this really interesting statistic from one of the articles that I was reading. All articles that I used will be linked in the description down below if you also wanted to check these out. But the article said the Harvard Crimson reported that in Harvard's class of 2017, 6% of admitted students came from only 10 high schools. So that means 11% of high schools with students admitted to Harvard sent 36% of that incoming class, while 74% of schools sent only one student. So I found that stat really interesting and just wild to think about, how 6% of that incoming class came from only 10 high schools, and typically Harvard admits like around 2,000 people, so 6% of 2,000 students would be 120 students in that incoming class from 10 high schools. So moving on to, how do feeder high schools help you in the college admissions process? One of the biggest advantages that these feeder high schools offer to students is their college counseling programs and their counselors. So a lot of times at these feeder schools, their counselors helping their senior class are often on a first name basis with the admissions officers for their region at these top colleges. These counselors might also be teaching classes to students, so they would be able to interact and see students on a more regular basis, which could help them get to know the students better as well as write better letters of recommendation, versus like for a lot of high schools, you probably don't really see your counselor or they're overworked, so it's really hard to get to know your counselor or even schedule a meeting with them. And another really big advantage of these feeder schools is that these students at these schools are familiar with the academic and social culture of college, because their high school is modeled off of what is seen at elite institutions in terms of curriculum, class structure, interactions with faculty, extracurricular activities, and social groups. So this could be an advantage once you're already in college, you know the drill, you know how you should be studying and all of that, versus other students, their high school didn't prepare them with the rigor for college. They don't really know how to study or manage their time. Those students might have a more difficult time transitioning to that college atmosphere and the workload that they're going to get. So So going into some feeder school examples and costs, you can Google like popular or top feeder schools, and a lot of similar names will come up on those lists. So I browsed some websites for these top feeder schools and saw that they had a lot of commonalities for the things that their school is trying to sell the prospective parent and student. So for a lot of these feeder schools, it's not just a feeder high school, but it is like a middle school and high school together. So it might be grades 6 through 12 or 7 through 12. And some of these schools might even be K through 12, where you would start with this kind of curriculum in kindergarten. On these feeder school websites as well, they list the application process. It's not just like, okay, anyone who lives in the area will get into this school like a public school, but these application processes, from what I was looking at, seem to be as difficult as applying to college, if not more difficult than applying to colleges. So for the feeder school application process, sometimes you would have to schedule a meeting with the dean or the admissions counselors, basically as like a consultation to discuss fit, to discuss your academics, all of those things, and then you would have to send in the application materials, which might be like essays and things like that. And then for a lot of these schools, you have to take standardized tests, and then they usually have an interview process where you would have to interview to get into these schools. So even from this general overview of the feeder school application process, you can sort of see it is long, it is complicated, there are so many steps that you have to take, and you have to be a certain kind of student in order to even be accepted. And so the most mind-boggling thing for me was the cost of these feeder schools. A lot of these schools don't necessarily say the full cost of tuition on their websites, which is wild that you would apply for something and not even know how much it could potentially cost in the future. But I looked into Trinity School, which is a private school on the Upper East Side. On their website, it said for grades kindergarten through 8th grade, it costs $58,385 a year. For grades 9 through 11 high school, it costs $58,495 a year. And then 12th grade, it costs $59,495 a year. And these numbers are not even the full price that you would be paying. This is for tuition only. Other required fees are identified on their website. During the school year, there might be additional expenses for textbooks, field trips, things like that. So you can see it's like $60,000 per year, and if you're starting that in kindergarten, that is totally wild. Like, this price is comparable or even more expensive to how much students are paying to go to college. So I was seriously mind blown by the price tag for these feeder schools. On a lot of their websites, they do have a tab for scholarships or financial aid, but it seems like you have to be really well off in order to afford these kinds of feeder schools throughout kindergarten through 12th grade if you're going to be paying $60K a year for your child's entire education. So let's talk about some takeaways from feeder schools. I feel like this whole concept of feeder schools having an elite private high school, middle school, elementary school education sort of relates into the legacy student topic that I talked about in a recent video. Legacy students and the boost that they get in their applications for having a parent that went to that same institution, and feeder schools paying for this private high school education sort of seem to be two different ways that these elite colleges, these top colleges, are continuing to stay elite, basically keeping elite education elite. Like, it sort of seems like a cycle. If you are privileged enough to come from a certain background, you're more likely to stay in that kind of background because of your education and these advantages, because these feeder schools have a ton of resources for students and parents. They're hosting college counseling sessions for students and parents. They have a ton of resources. courses, and these counselors are the best of the best. Then it can seemingly give these students a leg up in the admissions process because of all of these college admissions resources that they're getting. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on feeder schools, and if you have any videos that you want to see me do, also leave a comment down below. So if you liked this video, give it a big thumbs up to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.